in more than 3 decades. Bob Agnew reports.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says the U.S. has had 1,288 cases since the beginning of the year. That's higher than 2019, when there were 1,274 cases, driven by 22 outbreaks over 12 months. 17 states have seen outbreaks so far this year. If things don't improve, experts fear the U.S. could lose its status as having eliminated measles. There are also large outbreaks of the vaccine-preventable disease in Mexico and Canada. Bob Agnew reporting.
Silicon Valley chipmaker NVIDIA on Wednesday became the first publicly traded company to surpass a $4 trillion market valuation. Tesla scheduling an annual shareholder meeting for November, one day after it came under pressure from major shareholders to do so. That meeting will be held November 6th. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The following is an America Matters Media production. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the station or its advertisers, although we think they should. But that's the opinion of America Matters Media.
Vote for me, oh, such a breeze. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Over me.
All right, folks, you certainly know what that theme song means by now. That's right. It's time for another episode of America Matters. I'm your host, Leo Zacky, and joining me today is the War Hamster. War Hamster, welcome to America Matters, my friend.
Mr. Zacky, appreciate you having me on. Good to be back again.
It's a pleasure to have you with us. But before we jump into anything, I want to give a big shout out, hello, welcome, and thank you to everybody out there listening on 93.7 KPGF as well as AM 1060, and to all the folks listening on the affiliate stations. That's the Salem Network, the Answer Network, the Kevin Jackson Network, Radio for America, and of course AUN Television. Thank you so much for all of you tuning in there, and also a big thank you to everybody on those networks that helps get this broadcast out to all of you. Also, if you want to comment, like, subscribe, we want that very much. Make sure you do that on Zacky Radio, on YouTube, or on Rumble. Don't forget to go to America Matters Media's Facebook page or LinkedIn page and follow them there. But always make sure you follow me and Zacky Radio on X and on Instagram at Zacky Radio, and then follow me at Leo S. Zacky. We got a lot of great content for you. Little clips, easy to share, easy to like. But you know the real content is in the long format, so make sure you tune in, you stay tuned, and you send folks the links to all that stuff. So, without further ado, War Hamster, what's going on, my friend?
We have had one heck of a crazy news cycle the last few days. It seems like that's been the case almost nonstop since about November of last year.
It's always a crazy news cycle. I mean, that's one thing I've learned. It's like nothing new. Everything's supposed to be crazy, but that's by design, right?
Yeah, well, they got to change the news cycle if the optics are going against certain interests. They'll come up with something brand new and say, oh, well, let's stop talking about that. You know, that was yesterday's squirrel to chase. And I think that's absolutely intentional. You know, always moving the news cycle around.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, look, they're always manipulating the stories, the truth. They want you to see what they want you to see and nothing that they don't want you to see.
Yeah, the way we've been describing it is it's not what they say, which is the misinformation, is what they don't say.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go back, you know, with the benefit of hindsight, you can go back to old news cycles 10 years ago and what they were talking about. And it's not that the mainstream media said anything that wasn't true. It's what they left out that we found out that was true later that told the real story. So they're not telling you, they're telling you a story, not the story. And that's all about narrative control. And there's a pretty big worldwide organization that's behind all that. We can get into that in a bit if you'd like.
Sure. Well, elaborate. Let's go for it.
Well, first, I brought a video clip because last time we were on, we talked about tracing the money that was going to fund the LA riots, which is in your backyard. Mm-hmm. And we got to go through some rabbit trails there. Well, interestingly enough, I have got there is a Truth Social, bear with me 1 second, I just lost my screen share. There's a Truth Social truth that Donald Trump just yesterday retruthed. And I know we're on radio, but it's got volume.
No, that's fine. Here, share that screen.
Right here?
There we go.
All right, I am hitting play.
Do you want to see Israel destroyed?
Yeah. Well.
So what this is to describe the radio, this is a citizen journalist who's going around and interviewing people at a lot of these staged protests, that we like to call the paid protests.
That's what they are. Here, make it full screen, War Hamster.
Yep, absolutely. And he's interviewing this one woman, and this is about 2 minutes and 36 seconds, but I'll try to play it without stopping. You'll get the idea.
Yeah.
Your pin says you're Jewish, right?
At this point, I do. I used to believe in the one democratic state solution.
What do you do for work?
I don't.
You don't work? Why not?
I don't have to.
So you did well.
I haven't worked since I was 27.
Now, I think she actually is working and as a professional protester. Here's her protesting without her sunglasses on. She usually does have them on. Here's her saying HP profits from Israel's torture of Palestinian political prisoners. Here's her saying democracy is not for sale. Back again with the Palestine flag, and again with the South African flag. Now, it's not just her, as we know that they work in teams. Look at this blonde woman beside her. I found her at more protests than any other paid protester I've exposed in the past. I found her at close to 50 different protests, all within a couple of years. So who's behind this team of people chanting for Israel's destruction on America's streets? Their name is Sammy Dune. It's an organization based in Canada, and they are sanctioned by Canada as a terrorist group. In fact, in October of 2024, US and Canada issued joint statements listing Sammy Dune as a terrorist entity. Canada called them a sham charity who funnels money into the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which is a Marxist organization that recognizes a one-state solution with no Israel. Germany banned the group after members of Sammy Dune passed out candy celebrating October 7th. The founder of Sammy Dune at a rally in Vancouver publicly called Hamas heroic on the 7th and said that Hamas and Hezbollah don't engage in terrorism. If you look at the photos of this woman I interviewed, they almost all come from Sammy Dune's website. Now, the Tides Foundation and the Tides Center is behind this, and you remember the chief donor of the Tides Foundation, George Soros. However, all you see is that the Alliance for Global Justice is their fiscal sponsor. But if you lift the hood, you see that Soros gives to Tides, Tides gives to AFGJ, which then gives to Sammy Dune. Soros, along with the New Venture Fund, gave more than $9 million to the AFGJ, which again is the fiscal sponsor of Sammy Dune. They want it to look complicated so you don't see this, but make no mistake, Soros is funding this. It is also important to note that you can't even donate to the AFGJ with Stripe or PayPal or any normal methods, as all of those companies consider them terrorists. Yet they are still walking the streets of New York City screaming for the downfall of America.
Do you want to see Israel?
Unbelievable. Well, I mean, it is believable because it's today, it's 2025, but clearly we've known that there are paid organizers, and there you have it, Sammy Dune, and they can follow the money easily in showing that. And then those women that were in those protests, that's very clearly, I'm sorry, radio listeners, you couldn't see it. Don't forget to go to Zacky Radio to watch it, but that's very clearly the same women.
Yeah, absolutely. From protest after protest. And I think if we had about 20 more investigative reporters like that guy right there, that we could actually probably put together quite a money trail on what the whole apparatus of these paid protesters. It is not organic in any way, shape, or form.
No. And then you can only imagine how not organic it's been for how very long it probably has been that way. So, look, we're going to delve more into this when we get back from our first break here on America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky, and joining me today is War Hamster. We'll be right back.
We've been accomplishing Happy Feet for over 30 years.
We offer a various range of shoe styles and sizes for both men and women. From all-season shoes and orthotics to work boots and safety shoes, our professional and reliable staff possesses the knowledge to help you find the proper shoes to fit your needs. Hard to fit? Hard to find?
A Proper Fit Footwear is here to give our customers happy feet. We make people aware of potential foot problems as we're sizing their feet, suggesting the right arch support, and guiding them to the proper shoes for their needs.
Stop by a Proper Fit Footwear at 4001 South Virginia Street in the Reno Town Mall today, and allow the owner Mike Jones and our fabulous staff to find the perfect pair of shoes tailored to your specific needs.
A Proper Fit Footwear in the Reno Town Mall, home of Happy Feet, where comfort and your feet meet.
Talking to Victor from Precision Diamonds. Victor, I remember you in the old days, Park Lane Mall, a kiosk. It's a lot different now, isn't it?
Man, that was a long time ago. 1988, we've been blessed that we've been guided, and finally we have bought an amazing building across the street from the convention center. We found a better way to serve you. We call it home. We managed to create amazing energy. And when we say welcome to the family, boy, we really mean it.
It is a family affair.
Absolutely. And we couldn't have done it without our wonderful customers who believed in us for all of 27 years. So I'm here to really say thanks to all of our wonderful family members who we started as customers, who now we know each other's children and grandchildren.
All those years ago, a little kiosk in Park Lane Mall. Park Lane Mall's not there anymore, but you are still here.
Yeah, we have solidified our future by buying this beautiful building on Virginia Street. So we're there to serve you.
Thank you, Victor. Precision Diamonds, your local jeweler across from the convention center.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now back to the show.
All right, folks, we're back with America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky, and joining me today is War Hamster. And we've been talking about, well, how the news is manipulated. And, well, quite simply, so are the protests. And none of this stuff is organic, and we can follow the money trail. We can see repeat paid protesters all across the country at all sorts of different protests. But let's dive into it a bit further, shall we?
Yeah, it's worth it, because when you start seeing just how complex this massive web of organizations is that's been doing this, not just in America, but around the world. And then we can ask, what exactly are their end goals? And you heard, the last episode, this is a group that's become a terrorist. They're considered a Marxist group. And basically they want the downfall of whatever the Marxist goal is, the downfall of Western world or what have you. But, okay, we'll share the next little audio we have, or video. There it is. Hitting play.
Doing it up right now. So, folks, don't forget, you can always go to Zacky Radio on Rumble or on YouTube to watch it there. Make sure you do. And was that Tom Fitton?
Yeah, he's Tom Fitton from February of 2025.
All
and
right.
He's going to be talking about a similar subject.
Well, here, go make it full screen too.
As I recall, with what Soros was doing with USAID and or the State Department, was that he was collaborating, or his people were collaborating, in helping direct the spending. So there'd be a chunk of change that Soros's people would provide advice on as to who to give money to. So not only were they getting the money, but they were also funneling it to favored groups. And I don't know about you, I don't think George Soros should get a dime of taxpayer money. He doesn't, need it. Why is he getting money? Forget about the politics. It's like, would you want to give Elon Musk millions of dollars in taxpayer money to advance his political ideas in other countries? I don't know, maybe you would. I don't think he needs it, and he'd do it on his own anyway.
So what Fitton would go on to write, this is Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch, and he writes up here, he said, "You may have seen that Public Citizen is suing that real Donald Trump administration on behalf of 2 grantees over the funding freeze at USAID. Now, this is important because what Fitton just told us is that why is Soros getting to dictate where your tax dollars are going? And what he's actually doing is, under the guise of charity, these non-government organizations, NGOs, are receiving government money to do, sometimes it's under the guise of charity, sometimes charitable works, but more towards the furtherance of Soros's global, and that's not just George Soros, there's many groups involved in this, as we'll see in a second here. It says one of the plaintiffs is the Journalism Development Network is a Soros project, having received $4.4 million from the Open Society Foundations. JDN is the name of a vehemently anti-Trump group called the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Projects. That's the OCCRP, and we'll talk about them more in a bit. But this is the same group that gave us the Panama Papers, where they exposed an awful lot of money laundering, including out of the Ukraine and Panama. And they got a lot of, they've actually cleaned up a lot of things. It's an international consortium of journalists. But again, it's who they don't report on, because people with a certain political persuasion got off scot-free. So that's what Tom Fitton's talking about, the OCCRP and the JDN.
Wow. We've already been at least you and I have been very acutely aware of these NGOs and how they're getting their money from, just rather lucrative sources, and how that money then gets transferred into the hands of these paid protesters. So it comes from money that our government gives to places like Ukraine, right, for funding the war over there. And then it somehow gets funneled into an NGO that operates in a place like Panama, where then they're helping get illegal immigrants coming to this country. And then that money then winds up in the hands of people that are at protests in front of City Hall and defacing property and destroying property and attacking police and robbing stores.
Yeah, and it's funny. They started under the guise of what they called civic societies or civil societies. When Soros started working with the U.S. government in the early '90s, that's when USAID is founded, and that
open societies, right?
Yeah, Open Society Foundation, but the USAID is the government version of it. And there's Open Societies Foundations. Soros has them all over the world, and it isn't mostly funded with his money. And a lot of it's funded with your money, and that's really the issue.
Well, yeah, and with Doge exposing all the stuff that the USAID was spending money on, I mean, just disgusting. We're funding both sides of wars that our country's involved in. Literally, paying terrorists to kill our own troops, essentially.
Very much so. And if we've got a government that might be friendly to the current administration, then these guys don't want that government because they've got it's all been about the globalist agenda, and they're going to use all of this civil society resources. And it's soft power. We no longer invade other countries to topple regimes or to even to produce results locally. They've got all these street soldiers and all this whole honeycomb, spiderweb labyrinth of funding mechanisms. And it goes through the foundations, it goes through the NGOs, and it's almost impossible to keep track of it. But that's why there's a whole army of citizen journalists tracking this stuff down right now.
Yeah, and it's amazing how much better information you get from these citizen journalists than you do the mainstream corporate media. But that's by design because the mainstream corporate media is completely hijacked. They're totally owned by the entities that want to push for globalism and one world governance and the new world order. They don't want to have freedom. They're a mechanism of the government. They're essentially the fourth branch of the government.
Yeah, and it's it's a follow the money type thing too. I mean, you'd get censored if you were to say something that didn't follow the official storyline on COVID. Well, who's the biggest advertiser on both Fox News, CNN, MSNBC? It's all big pharmaceutical companies, and they have an awful lot of influence. You're not going to go after your biggest sponsor.
Yeah, RFK Jr. thankfully is making a big push to put an end to televised ads from Big Pharma. We're only one of two countries, it's us and New Zealand, that are allowed to pharmaceutical drugs on television. It's so mind blowing to me how like they can do that, and two, because you hear these advertisements all the time, and they're like, oh, we're going to help fix your eczema, and then like the fast talker comes on, it's like, oh, anal bleeding and heart attacks, death, stroke, blindness, paralysis. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, get all the disclaimers out of there real quick.
Yeah, it's like I just have eczema.
You want me to keep going, or we've got a break coming?
No, keep rolling.
All right, so the next thing I decided to do is let's look into this group that Mr. Fitton just oops, it's not what I wanted to hit.
But Tom Fitton does a great job with Judicial Watch, by the way. I mean, I'm a big fan of what he's doing. He's really making sure that people are held accountable. I just wish more people knew about Judicial Watch.
Yeah, he has done a great job. I thought, the one he did that I really loved was how he sued California, got 1 million illegal voters off the rolls, and California turned around and had him right back on 6 months later. But at least he won in court and set a great precedent.
Absolutely. That's a big concern that voters in California have. I mean, most of the state wants voter ID and to have and be able to check if you're a citizen too. Most Californians want that. It's over, I think, 70% in both categories, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. All right, next thing I did is I decided let's find out a little more about the Journalism Development Network Corp. So I asked Grok, artificial intelligence, what is the JDN Incorporation and how is it funded? And it says the Journalism Development Network is a Maryland-based 501c3, so it's nonprofit, which means, well, they get all kinds of tax breaks while they're spending your government dollars on their political aims. But what are they? Well, it operates the OCCRP, which is the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project. Sounds like a good idea, right? A global network of investigative journalists focusing on organized crime and corruption. Sounds great so far. They've got programs in Europe, 6 continents is all you need to know. So we look at their funding. Oh, the biggest funder is USAID.
Oh, how convenient.
Yeah, the Department of State. United Kingdom Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. So that's a transatlantic effort. We've got the Ministry for Europe and Foreign Affairs of France. We have Sweden, Slovakia, and Swiss. So all kinds of governments are funding this organization. Then you get to the private organizations. First one is Open Society Foundations with George Soros. The Ford Foundation, the Knight Foundation. Here it goes. National Endowment for Democracy, which is a CIA front.
Yeah.
A couple of other ones. Oh, we got Google Ideas.
Of course, Google's funding it too.
Of course. Here's a name to keep an eye on: Luminate. There's a lot to Luminate, and we'll talk about them a bit. And can't get past this without the Rockefeller Brothers Fund being involved, because they're involved in every single globalist endeavor. So that's where the funding comes from.
The Dutch postcode lottery.
All right, so we take a look at what the OCCRP is, and we'll just go right to their own website and see what they say about themselves. So that's always fun. All right. So I should have started here. This is our projects. I may as well go to the homepage. Okay. If you look at their headlines, they've got reporting on Dubai, Russian asset tracker. It's a really neat tool of who they think the oligarchs are that are connected with Putin. This is obviously, they've got a preconceived notion of who the good guys and bad guys are. Something called Scam Empire, Ukraine, Russia, Georgia. I thought Georgia was interesting because have you paid attention to the goings on over there the last year?
In Georgia?
Yeah, the country.
Yeah, no, the country of Georgia. I mean, I know that there's constantly this land grab pushing back and forth with Russia, at night changing the borders there.
Yeah, that went down about a decade ago, and they've got relatively good relations right now, despite the fact that we don't want them to. America's foreign policy has not wanted them to have good relationships with Russia. But they are neighbors. They are not part of Europe. Last year, Georgia got tired of meddling in their domestic issues by foreign non-government organizations. So they tried to pass a law that's identical to America's FARA law, Foreign Agents Registration Act. And our NGOs and State Department went ballistic and started staging protests in the street because they don't want to have to register as foreign agents and make it seem that they're interfering with local Georgia politics. Now, that's happening in many trouble spots around Europe. They're trying to pass these FARA acts.
So it's almost like what happened with Kennedy, but we haven't killed their president yet.
But there's, we talk about regime change and color revolution all the time. This is really how it's done with the soft power. It's the ability to rent a mob in the street. And we just talked about how that was done in Los Angeles. But we do it all over the world.
Brady, I want to keep talking about this, but we got to take our bottom of the hour break coming up here. This is really, really amazing stuff. And it's just amazing how easy it is with just a few clicks and a little bit of, intuition and time that you can find the answers to all these crazy problems. And unfortunately, so many people are lazy and complacent and just accept what's put in front of them. So I really appreciate you walking everybody through this and showing everybody all this. So we're gonna go back to that when we get back from this bottom of the hour break. I'm Leo Zacky with War Hamster. We'll be right back.
At A Proper Fit Footwear in the Reno Town Mall, we've been accomplishing happy feet for over 30 years.
We offer a various range of shoe styles and sizes for both men and women. From all-season shoes and orthotics to work boots and safety shoes, our professional and reliable staff possesses the knowledge to help you find the proper shoes to fit your needs. Hard to fit? Hard to find?
A Proper Fit Footwear is here to give our customers happy feet. We make people aware of potential foot problems as we're sizing their feet, suggesting the right arch support and guiding them to the proper shoes for their needs.
Stop by A Proper Fit Footwear at 4001 South Virginia Street in the Reno Town Mall today and allow the owner Mike Jones and our fabulous staff to find the perfect pair of shoes tailored to your specific needs.
A Proper Fit Footwear in the Reno Town Mall, the home of happy feet, where comfort and your feet meet.
We're talking to Victor from Precision Diamonds. Victor, we have talked before about the fact that you started 27 years ago in Park Lane Mall in a little kiosk. You are now in your own building across the street from the convention center. You've had to do something right.
Well, as we like to think that hard work, you like to think that it does pay off, but you get lucky along the way. You worked hard, you pay attention, and you get yourself ready. So hopefully when the right opportunity comes up to buy a beautiful building like we just have, you triple your size, you cut your overhead by half, and now you know that you're more competitive than ever.
Plus, you've had a chance to use all of the things you learned from that little kiosk in Park Lane Mall.
Oh, man, along the way, I'll tell you, as far as writing that lease check every month, boy, there were times that it was really hard to do, so you learn from your landlords, and it was really great feeling to say goodbye to the landlord. This has allowed us to truly become your local jeweler, your personal shopper.
Thank you, Victor. Precision Diamonds, your local jeweler across from the convention center.
Unable to listen to the whole show? A recording of today's program will be available later today. Visit americamatters.us and click on the podcast link. Now back to the show.
All right, folks, we are back with America Matters. I'm your host, Leo Zacky, and joining me today is War Hamster. And he's been walking us through, how you follow the money, how you do a couple of clicks on the internet, and boom. Now you know who's actually behind this and what their motivations are, who's connected to it. And the worst part is, it's good for us, but the worst part is that it's so blatantly obvious if you just take the time. These people quite literally have websites up about what their intentions are and what they're doing. And it's like, yeah, you're looking for the smoking gun. Here it is right there.
Well, they tell you what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's almost like they have to.
Right. But, isn't that part of the whole satanic order where they have to tell you what they're going to do to you before they do it, and that way they're absolved from any wrongdoing?
That's the rumor.
Right? I've heard these things.
I have too.
Just saying. So you've got some more paper trail for us.
I do.
I love it. The man brings receipts. Folks, this is what we're here to do. Show you that we aren't making this stuff up and that this is really happening. And you're being lied to. Not from us, but from the mainstream and all the mega corporations that control everything because, they're controlled by the globalist Marxist elite that wants to rein you in.
Absolutely. And one of the ways they've done that is they've changed everything from our language. This is where DEI comes from. How did it get so prevalent so fast? And I'm young enough to remember when the whole concept of political correctness was just coming in the 90s. Well, it really took off in the last decade or so. And how does that happen? It doesn't happen organically when we're reinventing the entire language. That's putting it nicely. Well, there's a reason for that because they get a ton of money. This database I'm looking at is from a site called datarepublican.com. And it's called a federal grant search. And she's put a lot of this stuff that's at the usaspending.gov and other great resources, but she's put it all together in an easy to search format. And so this gal deserves a medal for her service to research. But if you just go in there and type in a keyword of open societies, George Soros' main organization, and you start looking at all his recipients, these are all universities. But what are they? This is the first one you see is Florida A&M, $10 million outlay they got in it ends in 2028, so it's relatively recent. And what do they say about this? Insect science and plant science continue to face an alarming decline in student enrollments in minority-serving institutions. Minority students are underrepresented in most undergraduate programs, et cetera, et cetera. So this, again, is a DEI hiring grant to Florida A&M to get
bugs and plants.
Yes. And
you will eat the bugs, and we will have the minorities do it.
All right. Every single one of these almost is something like that. And I ask you, do you remember voting for all of your tax dollars?
Hell no.
To be given. And this is why Congress won't pass a budget or single issue budgets, because this is how they hide all the graft in there. And that's why USAID cutting it off was so important.
Rutgers is getting $5 million. Florida's A&M got $10 million. University of Oregon's getting $4.931,754 million. That's $4,931,754. George Mason University gets $1.5 million. This is Not what I wanted to fund. Regents of the University of Michigan, they get $1,956,732. It's oddly specific.
You got to read what some of these grants are for. And again, some of the stuff's legitimate. Like here's the rapid adoption of robot surgery. Okay, that might be something worth looking into if it saves lives. But you get into some of the fun ones. This one says, this is to Western Washington University. It's a collaborative research implementation evolved, embedding a vision to operationalize. They love these buzzwords. That's how you get the university grant, is you just throw a bunch of gobbledygook words out there.
SAT words, they like to call them.
Lift up and value equity and diversity in the consortium of aquatic science societies. What the heck did I just read?
The consortium of aquatic science societies.
I think they want more diversity in the Mermaids Union.
Because they want to hold on, go up. Because they want to lift up and value equity and diversity.
Yeah, and that's all it takes to get a $1.2 million grant for like 3 years. And then you're on a professor's salary. But this is how the money gets diverted, and of course, some of it gets kicked out to these other smaller organizations, and it's how they keep their foot soldiers very happy. That woman in the first video said, "I haven't worked since I was 27." Now think about that. She hasn't had a job. All she does is get paid to protest, and that's with your taxpayer dollars, people.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So this is a really neat website and resource, but this is great. Hang on, I got to read this one. This went to Denver Art Museum. Queens to Comadres, Mayan women then and now exhibit planning. The Denver Art Museum, it's called DAM, seeks support for the development of a traveling exhibition, Queens to Comadres, Mayan women then and now. And that's $73,000 of your tax dollars going to the Denver Art Museum. Now,
for a roving art exhibit.
Yeah, so I assume that the people that give money to this Denver Art Museum might have just happened to be big campaign donors to your local Denver Congress critters, and that's exactly how they get this kickback put in the bill, and that's how the cycle works.
So then they bury these in just any old bill?
They make it sound super nice. Oh, they were getting away with saying this for diversity, equity, and inclusion, but Trump's executive order put an end to that. So they'll just change the language and try to keep getting away with the same stuff. And that's why Doge was so important. It was showing the fraud and the waste.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, even the trustees of Dartmouth College getting almost $500,000 for climate change and human adaptation in the Arctic-like environments.
Which so many people live there, so it's so important, which is interesting. How do ideas like climate change and DEI and the other woke stuff, how do they become so prevalent through the institutions, not just the universities, but the higher levels of the corporations? Because you've got to have the higher education college degree to get certain jobs. Well, what they do is the people controlling this funding, these institutions, tax-free foundations, and other entities like George Soros, they decide what the universities get money for, and more importantly, what they don't get money for. So I could be the most brilliant climate scientist in the world and be able to prove that the sea level hasn't gone up in 150 years, and I'm never going to get it funded in a million years. But 100 people that say what the party line is, they get the money.
Yeah. And that's it. It's all about following the party line, falling in line, doing what you're told. I mean, that's why the Democrats are a machine and not a free-thinking outlet. I mean, I'm glad to see that there's some infighting in there, but it's just like idealistic young socialists versus the globalist, control that is pushing for the one world government.
And it's exactly what it is. It is the Great Reset tied with a new world order, whatever you want to call it. It's all been about consolidating all the power into basically a consortium of globalists. Well, they'll divide the power among them. They'll get their bureaucratic, I like to call them Praetorian Guard, basically to protect the institutions, these glorious institutions of America. And that's what a lot of people in D.C. do. They care so much about the institution. They care about more than they do the country.
Well, because the institution that they're protecting financially benefits them.
Well, absolutely.
That's all it's about. They're about protecting their nut. They don't care about anything else. And they'll destroy everything around it to make sure that they're okay, because it's screw you, screw everybody else, take care of my family and myself first.
Yeah, and there's some fun psychological studies done several decades ago about the authoritarian personality. And it's not about the authoritarians themselves. It's about the authoritarian personality is someone who wants an authoritarian controlling them. And it's very prevalent, and it can be increased and it can be done institutionally. And that's what they weaken people across the board, so they're more subservient and acceptance of authoritarianism. And it's really worth reading about is the authoritarian personality, because when you encounter these people in real life, you can understand what they're thinking.
What could you say that you could apply that to both sides?
No, I would say I consider myself on the side of liberty, individual liberty, free thought. So
no, for sure. I mean, we're definitely firmly in that camp. But I mean, can you see that playing out on both sides, Republican and Democrat?
Oh, without a doubt. I'm not making this a right-left issue at all. The establishment Republicans are just a different wing on the same bird.
Mm-hmm.
It is, I used to joke that we only have 1.5 national political parties, and boy, we could do shows about ideas of how to fix that, but I don't think we have time to get into that one today. But absolutely.
No, I know. I mean, the libertarians, from the interactions I've had with them, it's just they're fed up with both parties. They can't stand it. They just want something that works, and they don't 100% align with either party, and they have lost faith in both parties. And so they're like, screw it, we're going to do our own thing. And I really respect them for doing that. It's very hard to organize it. And, because everybody wants to be the tallest blade of grass, and there's so many ideas in the Libertarian Party. It's so broad that they have a hard time finding anything that they really agree on other than, liberty, and they want the government to actually function. Those are the baseline things I at least see with them.
Well, some of them don't even want the government to exist at all, and that's what you talk about the broad spectrum of libertarians. I spent a lot of time in libertarian circles, but it's not just libertarians. About a third of the electorate in America is independent, not registered for either party, and there's a reason for that. Some of them are apolitical. The other ones are sick of the parties. And that's why you got something like MAGA. And the whole MAGA movement is anti-establishment Republican. They're hoping that enough Democrats leave the establishment Democrat that we can all meet in the middle. And that's why it was so great to see Bobby Kennedy, cross over, because his Maha movement is fantastic. We all agree with it.
Oh, absolutely. I love Maha. I mean, how can you disagree with wanting to make this country healthy and getting all the poison out of our food and out of our air and out of our water? How can anybody disagree with that?
How dare you attack the vaccine industry?
Oh, that's right. That's right. There's money involved here. How could we forget? Silly me.
Yeah, but these same people hated Big Pharma 10 years ago.
Yeah, now they champion it.
Yeah. We got time to go to another website?
Well, let's do this. We're going to take our last break on America Matters, and when we do come back, I want to hear more about that, but just give us a little teaser real quick.
Well, I'm going to go to another website from Data Republican. She just put up a whole tab of there with basically a bunch of document search for everything related to Open Society Foundation. And we're going to scroll through a few of those, and you're going to see some really, I'm going to pick them randomly. And I know where to go on these like 20-page documents. I know where to go to see what the recipients are. And what you're going to see is the intended recipient is not always, there could be something else, a little bit ulterior motive for where this money's going, especially internationally.
Oh. Well, that's the thing. This is a problem we're seeing worldwide. You're seeing this in Europe. You're seeing this in America. It's crazy. It's real. It's happening. I mean, look what's happening in the UK. Look what's happening in the streets of LA and around the country.
Yeah, and all these organic, just remember, all these protests, a lot of them are about optics. This is not some great grassroots uprising in many places. A lot of it is organized by these NGOs, and the purpose usually is regime change or otherwise getting I'd say, call it the globalist viewpoint put into place.
Yeah, and then they have the performers get on stage. The corporate media is there to capture it and broadcast it and say, look, this is organic. All the world's a stage, folks. This is America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky. Joining me today is War Hamster. We'll be right back.
From home for our veterans and their families who travel to Reno for medical care. Our house is more than just a warm bed. It's a place of camaraderie where veterans can find support and long-lasting friends. We serve veterans, men and women, young and old, Navy, Army, Marines, Coast Guard, and Air Force. Wherever they hail from and whatever their circumstance, the Veterans Guest House is ready to support them. The reason we feel so strongly about our mission is that we know that many veterans would forgo their medical treatments because they simply can't afford the accommodations. The guest house is one of a kind in the country, funded entirely through private donations. Want to know how you can help? There are many ways you can be involved, from volunteering, providing dinners, or supplying items from our wish list. Find out more about the guest house at www.veteransguesthouse.org, serving veterans today, tomorrow, and for years to come.
The Delta and Bonanza saloons in Virginia City are simply elegant. Imagine ascending the grand staircase and being surrounded by the Victorian elegance and grandeur of the historic banquet rooms. Original crystal chandeliers, mahogany bars, and oak dance floors highlight the eloquently appointed spaces. A truly romantic and unique setting for your wedding, banquets, or holiday parties. Detailed ceremony and menu planning ensures your special event is a memorable occasion. With just one call to Jesse at 775-847-0789, all of your arrangements will be handled by their experienced staff, with your every expectation in mind, including cakes, flowers, photography, videography, music, and party amenities. Complete ceremony and reception packages are available, as well as their famous themed weddings. Since 1865, the Delta and Bonanza Saloons guests have come from every state in the Union. Now it's your turn. No event is too large or too small. Let the Delta and Bonanza Saloons plan your next incredible event. Call Jesse at 775-847-0789.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now back to the show.
All right, folks, we are back with America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky, and joining me today is War Hamster, and we have been just diving deep into, well, following the money, because that's the best thing you can do. If you really want to know who's behind whatever insanity that you're observing, and let me tell you, everything in this world seems to be more and more insane by every passing day. We've got War Hamster showing us here on the Open Society's website. Well, he's using Data Republican to show us where the money's been going and how Open Society's, George Soros's operation, has been getting the funding from our very own government to do, well, the globalist bidding around the world. So, I mean, let's start finding some more of these breadcrumbs, shall we, Brady?
Yeah, and I just want to say it's not just George Soros. There's all kinds of foundations. You have the Rockefeller Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Carnegies. The Rockefellers have their fingerprints in every single one of the depopulation, Malthusian climate cult groups in the world. They've got their fingerprints on that. And you can trace a lot of that money also comes from the Chinese Communist Party. So that tells you, you get groups like that are working together, it does raise an alarm bell. But we're going to Soros today. So we got my screen up there. It says,
yep.
All right. Once again, this is from the Data Republican. This is a tax and CEU document search for Soros Open Society Fund. So if you look at this first one of 1982, just pop it open. And this is going to be a multiple page document. It tells you the type of grant, who the author was. They reveal foundation's transition, blah, 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 from a financial shell to an active grant making entity in their tax return. So this is when it started, it was 82. They went from being a hedge fund to we're going to basically create active grants. So you look at this one. This is one of theirs from 1982, Department of Treasury filing. I'm going to scroll down here because I know where to go. Who the grant recipient is. It's usually around page 8. And a lot of these are blanket tax forms. But you get to the part. I apologize. We're doing research in real time.
No, that's fine. This is how it's done. But it just goes to show you that it doesn't take that long to actually go through and do this.
No, it really doesn't. So once you get through, okay, who's actually the grantees? Okay, here we have it. Approved for future payment. We have the Waterford Kamalaba School. And this is in Swaziland, South Africa, getting about $104,000 of U.S. taxpayer dollars.
In 1983.
Yeah, and this was for a school called the Kamalaba School. And we could go look in the Kamalaba School, but I'll tell you what they are. The AN African National, whatever the ruling party of South Africa, ANC, is a full-on Marxist organization. And they basically came out of Swaziland. So this is basically footprints of George Soros taking U.S. tax dollars going to fund these activists in South Africa who are now in power in South Africa. So that's just one. And you can trace them all.
And the address, there was an address there in Paris as well.
Yeah. 7501 Paris, France, the New York Institute for Humanities.
New York, yeah. So this is a multinational, multi-continental effort.
And these are financial filings, and this is how you follow the money. So let's pick another year. I'll let you pick a random one. We got 84, 85, 87. What do you want?
Yeah, do 91. That's my year.
That's an important year. All right. Once again, significantly escalated, and this is filing. It says it escalated its overseas operations, anchoring its influence through a broad spectrum of grant making aimed at reshaping post-communist Eastern Europe. Well, no kidding. The Berlin Walls just fell, and George Soros' open societies are doing their civil engagements everywhere. The countries that were behind the Berlin Wall, our State Department, U.S. State Department, was busy ushering in all kinds of basically a resource grab for multinational corporations. And that's why the first 10 years of post-Soviet Russia was about as corrupt as anything we ever saw.
Yeah, the mafia really got involved there.
Yeah, very much so. We got some mentions of Yugoslavia, Poland, Budapest. That's where this money's going. Let's see if I can find some keywords here. I'll just go really quickly. Some pretty big dollar amounts. Right now we're in the $800,000 range. But that money adds up, and it pays for these activists.
This is something that's not. It doesn't seem like any of this stuff is new. This is over 30 years old.
Yeah, it is. It really changed in 1991. That's when the CIA went from the Cold War stance to soft power color revolutions. And they needed, because the CIA, what's interesting is, in 1975, the CIA had to go through the Church Committee hearings. And I was at Congress really grilling the CIA, and they found out about things like MK Ultra and some other nasty programs. And a couple years after that, Jimmy Carter was president, and he did what's called the Halloween massacre. About a third of the CIA was fired. CIA was under the magnifying glass. And they realized they couldn't overtly or covertly do a lot of their operations. So they switched to soft power, and they started using NGOs, things like Voice of America, the internet, etc., to push their civil society endeavors. And the CIA got to take a back seat. Or did they? Half the people at the State Department are, likely CIA, undercover. So that's really the whole story. It started with 75 Church Committee, and then we get to the 90s when the Berlin Wall falls. It was open season.
Wow. And all the while they've been working with drug cartels, like even with Pablo Escobar, to bring cocaine into the country and get it out to the masses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything to break down society.
Yeah, very much so. Why do we have a war on drugs?
Because it's not supposed to be one; it's just supposed to be financed.
Yeah. Did drug use in America go up or down with the war on drugs? Same thing with the war on poverty.
Yep.
Let's see if we can find some good things here. So we have a Deloitte & Touche. That's their auditor. This is, there really is hunt and peck when we're looking for these things. But you'll start seeing recipients. And when you do, it makes sense. This one didn't really yield a lot this year. But that's really, kind of how I do the hunt for it. You just go through you start going through the documents, financial documents. It's great when you have websites where they're all accumulated. Let me give you one more website. And so I can find that real quick.
I appreciate all of this, War Hamster. You really know what you're doing here. And that's the thing is, we talk about this and people are just like, well, I don't get it. Like they just want like the simple answer, the simple solution. Like, oh, well, just give me the Spark Notes or whatever, the Cliff Notes, and there's so much detail that is really readily available at the fingertips. And just people just don't take the time to do it. And a lot of folks just don't know where to begin.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons that we really like to share these extra resources and to get more eyeballs on looking for things. Like I said, that even that OCCRP, which I would suggest 90% of their work is good journalism, the other 10% is propaganda, is that's how they do it. But even that,
who are some good citizen journalists that people should just listen to? Who do you recommend?
The citizen journalists, like I said, Data Republican's a must watch at this point in time. Jordan Sather is very, very good. He does some deep research, and he's come up with some things that I really enjoyed. But there's dozens of them. There's my good friend, Ghost of Base Patrick Henry, Gordon, who's on Badlands Media. They've got a couple good ones there on Badlands. But there's a lot. And what you'll find is most of these people with big followings, mine's growing, but I'm not there yet. We get a lot of sub-researchers, people that don't want to be in front of a camera, but love doing the homework. And they're sending us links. We have whole teams, collaborators, and the work really goes fast. And it's fun to be part of the community because so many bright people.
Well, there are, and I'm sure there are some of those bright people out there listening. They just don't have someone to turn to. I mean, how can folks get in touch with you to be a part of that research team?
Follow me on X at, it's War_Hamster 1776. My DMs are open. Follow me on True Social at War_Hamster. And watch my Rumble channel. Big one is on Rumble at War Hamster, War Space Hamster. And all the stuff's up there. Put a comment there and I respond. But yeah, I'm more than happy. If anybody wants to get involved, the more the merrier. We need the help. So let's jump into the next website because this is a really important resource.
Let's do it.
Let me know when I'm up.
We've got that screen share. There we go. This is usaspending.gov.
Yeah, this is a treasure chest. And it takes a while to learn how to run around it. You use keyword filters, and this one I used open societies. That's today's topic. You can also do a time period search, different types of awards, what agency. It's got every bit of detail you could want. But I just did a really bland one, and I did open societies, and it lists them from the largest to smallest. And the first one's for something called the International Research and Exchanges Board. Now, I haven't looked to see what that is, but that looks like it's an SEC, so Securities and Exchange Commission. The one that jumped off the page at me was the President and Fellows of Harvard College, got $2.6 million of taxpayer money. Leo, you have any idea how big the Harvard endowment is?
Oh, it's billions.
Uh-huh.
Tens of billions, in fact, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's I think it's 50 or 60 billion.
Yeah.
Harvard and Yale. And a lot of the people who fund those endowments, here's one of the, what is her name? Catherine Austin Fitz is a brilliant researcher. She comes from my world. She was working for multi-generational family wealth. She actually grew up about a few miles from where I'm sitting right here. But Catherine retired, and she's been doing basically been a researcher ever since. She says, and she's a follow the money gal with a lot of resources. She thinks it's the people who fund, and she did this on the Tucker Carlson show. She thinks it's the people who fund the Ivy School endowments who are the ones who really push the direction of our institutions. So that being said, there's a huge fight going on between the Trump administration and Harvard College.
Yes.
So that made this one really interesting to me. So I'm going to click on it and see what we find. Okay, this is the Presidents and Fellows of Harvard College. Got $175 million from 697 transactions from the...
It went to a different web page.
Oh, okay. Share this tab instead. There you go. So this is, starting over, this is the President and Fellows of Harvard College have gotten $175 million from almost 700 transactions from the U.S. government. And look at this, is just consistently $183 million in 2014. This is $161 million in 2015. This is almost $200 million every single year.
That's over 200 right there.
Yeah.
Over 200 again.
Yep.
I mean, this is
and who's
wild.
Yeah. Let's look at who's giving them the money. Oh, the Department of Health and Human Services. The other big one.
Science Foundation, Department of Defense, Department of Energy, National Aeronautics and Space Administration. So that's NASA is giving them money. I mean, Jesus Christ, this is a lot.
To me, the big one is the National Science Foundation because they actually decide what's going to get researched and what doesn't. Now, you would think that the way science is supposed to work is you throw out a thesis and you test it and then you put it out there so another scientist or other scientists can, basically test your thesis and try to disprove it. That's the way science is done. And if we can't disprove it, you've got a great thesis.
You're right. War Hamster, unfortunately, we were running out of time here. So thanks for joining us. I know we're getting to the juicy stuff. I'm going to have you come back on again real soon, okay?
Anytime, my friend.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on America Matters. I'm Zacky with War Hamster. We'll see you next time.
the pavement, broken roads, voices lost where the cold wind blows, shadows stretch across the empty halls. Time to rise, tear down these walls, fix the system, break the chains, wash the lies out in the rain. No more whispers, no more fear. The time for change, it starts right here. Rust on the gears of the old machine, dreams buried deep beneath the screen. Echoes scream through the silent night. We won't stop till we see the light. Fix the system, break the chains, wash the lies out in the rain. No more whispers, no more fear. The time for change, it starts right here. Voices rise like a battle cry. Truth cuts sharp under open sky.